Welcome back to Astral Auto Repairs. That's right. Can you dig it? Okay, we're at part 3 of doing the head gaskets on this 2001 Dodge Grand Caravan Sport with the 3.3. First two videos. The first video, we did some valve stem seals, umbrella seals. Second video, we installed the heads, showed you how to torque them down, showed you what the torque specifications are. Today, we're going to put the exhaust system on. Now, we're not going to put the valve covers on yet. And do not put the valve covers on yet. You want to, at this time, it is crucial that you install the exhaust manifolds. Let me show you. Yeah, I'm just kicking this camera all over the place, man. This sucks. Alright, check it out. Here we go. We got exhaust manifold, and we got a connector pipe that connects both exhaust manifolds. Now, we come over here to the car. And as you can see, let's go back a little bit. Now, we got the valve cover gasket goes on here next. The valve cover and the gasket. But see, we need to get that exhaust manifold in this little space right here. Get it back there, tighten it up. And now you're not worrying about the catalytic converter yet. But I also want you to do is pay attention to those two connectors right there. Now, pretty much one of them, let's see which way this goes. One of them, as you can see, one of them is round, one of them is square. Here's a round one. It's going to the O2 sensor on the catalytic converter. We can pretty much plug this up if we wanted to, but just keep that square one where you can see it. Now, as I said in the last video, with the headset came 2 exhaust manifold gaskets. Do not use them. If they're not completely metal, like the head gaskets, do not use them, because these cardboard gaskets with the metal on the outside, in about 2 years they will burn right out, and you're gonna be taking this apart again, the exhaust manifold part rather. That's why from the dealership they did not use any gaskets. But what we're going to do, we are going to put a thin bead of red. Red is for high temp. You can see right there, high temp silicone on these ports. Turn it over right there, and on those 3 ports. Now the first thing we're going to do is hook up the back one. The back one is difficult, as you can see. This is the rear exhaust manifold. Here's the O2 sensor plug. You can see it's square, so we know where that's going to go. We cleaned up this part right here. Okay, now what we're going to do is, first of all, before you do this, have your 6 bolts ready. The heads on these bolts are pretty different than a lot of 10mm bolts. As you can see, it's like rounded top and all. There's 6 of them. So right up here, we have our 6. Have those in hand, because you're going to need that. Okay? Alright, let's set this camera up. And we're going to try to get it set up so you can pretty much see how this is gonna go up there. This is gonna be a tight fit, okay? It's gonna be a tight fit. Now you notice, let me back out a little bit for a minute. You got the hose here for your power steering. I got the bolt still lined in for the intake manifold. If you can, swing that to the side. Let's take out this bolt. Hook the hose up under that bolt. You know, so in that way, now see that opening we got in there? So we should be able to go down with no problem. Make sure nothing's down there in your way. And we'll be right back with that. Okay, we're ready to go with this. Got the exhaust manifold, thin layer, thin bead of red silicone on each of the ports. Nothing on the back one, because there is a metal gasket to go back there. And let's take our time and get this thing set back there. As you can see, it does take a little bit of moving around. But it did go pretty good. And find out where our bolts are. Okay. That first one is very difficult to get to. But once you get that first one started, like I just got it, the rest of them are gonna go pretty easy. Now you want to start all 6 by hand. So let's get those 6 lined up in there, started by hand, and then we're going to take a 10mm and tighten them up. All right, let's get those in and tighten them up. We'll come back and set the other one up. Okay, we got the exhaust manifold on in the back. We tightened up the bolts. And what we did was reach down there and connected both O2 sensors. Next we're going to put the exhaust manifold on in the front. So I'm going to take out these bolts and get the other exhaust manifold. Put a bead of silicone, red silicone, on the ports and install it. It's going to be a lot easier than the back one because now we're able to see it. Okay, here we go. We got the. Let's get a bead up there. Just a thin bead, nothing crazy. Okay, let's get a little bit more right there. Okay, close it off. Okay, now we go over here. Try to set this. Set this camera up to get us a good angle at this. Okay, that's good enough. All right, let's get that exhaust manifold. As soon as you get 2 bolts started, you pretty much let it go. Okay, get the other bolts in. Just like I said, 10 millimeter. Tighten them up, and then we're gonna put the connecting pipe in. Be right back. Okay, got the exhaust manifold bolted on. Make sure you got there's a engine wiring harness right here. Go to the fuel injectors. See how I got that going right along the top of the transmission, the back of the block, and up here. Make sure you got that going like that. I got this hose wrapped to the side. See, so I got a clear avenue to set this pipe down in here. And then we go over here to the pipe. Let's see. Now, I'm going to show you something here. This one over here. See that little, it's got a little indentation on the top. First of all, you want to make sure the pipe looks like, see, like a sad face. Like that. Make sure that piece is to the top. And that's exactly how it goes to set down in there. We got 4 bolts. 4 nuts with little pins on them. They're stop brackets. So when you tighten it up, the bolt don't move. You don't got to put a wrench on the other side. Very nice design. And just like I said, see, these got metal gaskets. Great. Now you could probably put these on without putting anything, but what I'm going to do is take a little bead of silicone, just a small bead around there, put the gasket on it, put the bolts in the back, put the gaskets on it, both sides, and then put another little bead, and then we're going to go over there and we're going to set them in. Alright, so let me see if I can, what I'll do is try to do one here for you. Okay. Just a small little bead. Because the gasket pretty much is going to seal. Just want to be sure that you don't get no exhaust leaks. You know, kind of doing this with one hand. Alright, you get the gist. I'm gonna put the bolts in there, put another bead right here. I'm gonna do both sides, then we're gonna set it on. Alright, be right back. Okay, we're back. Take a look at this. A little bead of silicone on both sides. Go around that side. Now we're gonna go over here, set this camera back up. I don't know how good you're gonna be able to see this, but take your time and set this in there. Make sure the bolts line up and everything. Now, while you're putting this in, now the front one is pretty easy. You're gonna see that right there. Now the back one, as you can see, you can't really see it there, but look over. See, this is another reason why we ain't got that valve cover in there. You'll be able to see that top one right there. And then we got to go underneath to start those. We might be able to start that top one. Might be able to, but let's find out. Let's set this camera up. All right, let's go get that pipe. Okay, we got the pipe. Let's set the screws up here. I have a little problem going in here, but you know, it's to be expected. So I'm gonna just take my time. Make sure everything's lined up. I am not in a rush here. Okay, I got them lined up. See if we can get one of these bolts started up here. That's So all I need is about one. Okay, let's see if I can get one over here. This one's going to be kind of difficult because the heat shield's in the way. But I got it. At least I thought I did. Oh yeah, I got it. Let's try. It's right in there. Perfect. Look at that. Let's take this camera off of here. You can see we got one bolt over there started. We got that top one. Right there. We got that top one started too. Now the one on the bottom, we're gonna have to go underneath to get that one. This one I can probably bend enough to get down in there. Probably can get up under here some kind of way and get that one started. If not, I'll be getting that one too. So let's get those bolts in there and tighten them up. All right, get yours tightened up. I'll get mine tightened up. We'll be right back. Okay, let's see here. We tighten up the connecting pipe. Make sure the wiring harness is away from it, over to the side, just like that. It's coming out pretty good. The next thing we're going to do is, while the valve cover is off, do not put the valve covers on, we're going to connect the catalytic converter. So there's a, you can see back here, I can barely pick it up. And so what we're going to do is, I'm not going to be able to film this. Let's see if I can get further. What I'm going to do is put the gasket in there and hold it up while I can get a bolt started. See how I got it right there? So, let me show you what's got to be done here. Getting it from the bottom is kind of difficult, but you can. I find it easier from here on the top. So what we got here, we got the 4 bolts that's going to go in there. Now, in removing this, 2 of the bolts snapped, broke off. So we got 2 of the original ones, and we got 2 that we got. For the top, we're going to use 2 of the original ones. So what we're going to do here, take this off. You know, that looks kind of small. I might not use that. Let me get another longer one to put up there. We're going to take these 2 and the gasket. Now what we're going to do, the red silicone, we're going to put a bead around this side, a bead around this side. Then we're going to go up there, hold the catalytic converter up, place the gasket in. Go over here. Yeah, camera. Place the gasket in between there, and that's all we have to do is just from the back side put the nut through. Put the nut through there on both top ones. That'll keep it up into place. Okay, so I'm gonna do that, and then I'll come back with the camera. Good luck, and I'll be right back. Okay, as you can see, got the bolts in on the top, and we got the 2 in on the bottom. There's 4 bolts all together. Got the gasket in there, and now we can tighten those up. So let's tighten those up and move on to the next step. Okay, we got all the bolts, all 4 bolts tightened up. Both O2 sensors are hooked up. Our next step is, first we're gonna, if you remember, we put these bolts right here. Gonna unhook this. Get this power steering hose out of the way. Put the intake bolt back. Because now, make sure the harness is out of the way. Now, everything is ready to put on the valve covers. Alright, so let's go get the valve covers and get them cleaned up. Okay, next part is the valve covers. We'll make sure the harness is out of the way. We can get all that. And we're going to take a rag and you're just going to wipe around this because we already cleaned that up. But what we need to do is just take a rag and wipe it off. And here's the valve cover gaskets up here. Set them in. And as you can see, we marked these just in case. There's the right one, and that's facing forward. And there's the left, and that's facing forward. Okay, I'm gonna wipe this off and set the camera up, and we're gonna install these valve covers. Get ready. Okay, we're gonna start off with the one in the back. I like to get that one over with first. Right front. So as we set it down, start the bolts by hand, just so when we tighten them up, we don't get them cross-threaded. Now the ones in the back might be a little bit difficult to get to, so you might just put a socket on it, but still use by hand to get it. And now the left. Now you notice I'm putting the valve covers on and haven't even put the intake on, because we can do that. And the intake will still set right down in there like nothing's wrong. Okay, these bolts are 5/16 or 8mm. Let's tighten up all those bolts. Be right back. Okay, valve covers are tight. Everything is good. The next thing we're going to do is do the intake manifold. First, we're going to remove all the bolts that's going to hold down the intake. Now the gasket that goes up here, they call it a valley pan gasket because it's not like two separate gaskets, what a lot of cars have. A lot of cars will have a gasket over here and a gasket on the other side and one in the center. The one we got from Fisher is a Fel-Pro, and as you can see, it's actually a valley pan. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to set this down. You know, on the bottom, what we're going to do is we're going to put a little dab of oil, just a dab, on each of the four corners. That's just so it can make sure it seals, no oil come out of here. So what we're going to do is just take a small dab of silicone. I'm going to get the red silicone. I'm going to put a little dab right there and on each four corners. Okay, let's get that. Got the silicone here. Okay, and let's go over here. Put a little dab here, right there. Just a small dab. They don't have to be no big thing, glob and all that. Just on the corner, very small. Put a little bit more than that. Okay, we got that on. Now, this is going to be your preference. This is what I like to do. This got 4 ports the antifreeze goes through. What I like to do is put a little silicone around those 4 ports, because here's the upper intake. Antifreeze, I just don't like to take a chance, so I just put a thin bead around there. So I'm gonna do that. Now what we're gonna do is put a bead around this one on the outside and a bead on the other side. Only on the 4 corners, not on the rest of it, just on those 4. All right, let's do that and then get back to putting that on. Okay, let's go over here. As you can see, I got the silicone on all sides. Now we're gonna go up here and set this gasket down. Okay, now let's go get the intake. Okay, here we go. We got the intake. We just cleaned it up. What we're gonna do is just wipe it down, clean up on both. We cleaned up both sides. Now, before we do that, I forgot to tell you one important thing. When you set this intake manifold gasket down, remember the 2 10mm bolts on each end that you gotta install and tighten those up now. All right, so let's get those tightened up and set this intake down up there. Okay, we tighten up the bolts. Let's set that intake down. Make sure no wires are in the way. Hoses. Once you get it down, start putting some bolts in it. Now you see why we put that valve cover on? Just cover it right up. Okay, starting from the center, we're going to put these in and bring them in till they just stop. Okay, bring yours in. I'm gonna bring this in, and then we're gonna torque that intake down. Be right back. Okay, got that down. Now we're gonna torque. The torque on these is not tight at all, so be very careful. Starting from the center, work like a circle, like that. The torque is 10, 16, and then 16 again. Okay, I'm going to need me a shorter ratchet over here. Okay, let's see here. Let's start off over here. Now, 10 pounds is very, very light. Just listen to that torque wrench. Okay, 10, 16, 16. Let's get that done and we'll be right back. Okay, we got the intake torque down. Looking like an engine in here. Now, what we're gonna do now, we're gonna go over here. Before we forget, we're gonna hook up some wiring over here, some wiring harness. We got a few connectors. We got one right here, the coolant sensor right there, and these come up because those are going to be for the ignition coil and the fuel injectors. So let's get this connected in here. Sometimes they don't want to. They act stubborn. There we go. Now, our next step. Got this side of the way. Do the power steering reservoir out of the way. And if you see, I got the 4 bolts right here. We're going to get the ignition coil. You know, better yet, what we're going to do is let's get this cooling hose on first right over here. Let me get this out so you can see it better. Okay, that cooling hose right there, let's get that connected. And what I did was, when I took this job apart, got the clamp. So get the clamp. Let's put that hose on, and then we'll get the ignition coil. Be right back. Okay. We're ready to install the coil. I took off the 2 bolts and the 2 nuts. Wiring harness is over here to the side. Now, on the ignition coil, it sits on top of a bracket. It's very important that you know where that bracket, how that bracket sets. Okay? You see this where the bolts is I took out? That's facing to the front of the engine. So we're going to go over here. Set that down. Make sure the wiring harness is out of the way. Goes right down. On the ignition coil, on the side of the ignition coil, there's a plug where you plug it to. That plug faces towards the firewall, or in other words, the back of the car. And also what I did when I took this apart, I left all the wires on and unplugged them from the spark plugs. And if you notice here, I marked them all. This is number 3, 2, and 1. So I know this goes on the right side of the engine and it's numbered, and left side the same way. So what we're going to do is set that on. Let's see if we can get a better look at it. View like this. Okay. Let's get that set on. And watch out for the harness. Set right down. Now, We bring the harness around here for the fuel injectors. And while we're over here, we'll plug up the ignition coil. We're good to go. Now what we're going to do is go around to the side and start hooking up the spark plugs. Let's start off from the furthest one, number 1. Number 2. And number 3. Okay. It's coming out good. We got the ones in the front, might as well hook those up too. Let's see, make sure you can get a good look at this. Okay, let's hook up these front ones. That is coming out really nice. Now, get our nuts and bolts and tighten that coil down. Alright, let's tighten those down and we'll be right back. Okay, we're coming to a close on this. Alright, got the ignition coil bolted down. Now, the power steering pump, the power steering reservoir, as you can see, it has a little fork right there. That's going to mount right there, and then the intake gonna go on. So we're not worried about that yet. Our next step is to put down the fuel injectors, but we can't. Let me go show you why, just in case you missed the other videos. Here's our fuel injector rail with the harness connected. This is the harness I was telling you about here. See this? You see that mess? That is what you call a fire hazard. This thing was running so bad, running so rich. So we ordered a new wiring harness and we gotta wait till that comes in. Here's our new intake, upper intake manifold gasket. So we can't put that on until we get the fuel injection rail set down. So what we're gonna do is got the upper radiator hose. We're gonna put that on, and we're gonna give this, drain the oil, put a new oil filter up here, and that's gonna be it. You know, we can actually do a little bit more. We're actually gonna be able to start pouring some antifreeze in this because everything will be sealed up. So let's get this set up here. Now for the fun part. Okay. Now doing this job, it's not that bad. It's probably because I'm used to it, I'm not sure. But just take your time and you can do it. Follow the video. If you have any questions, post about it. I'll be more than happy to help you out. This is part 3 of doing this job. When we come back, which will probably be a few days from now, but what we're going to do is we should have the new wiring harness in. We're going to put the wiring harness on there, put everything, the upper intake back in. We'll have the oil change done, have the antifreeze in, start this thing up, and this vehicle's up for sale. This vehicle will be up for sale for $2,500. As you can see, all the work that's been going into it. We want to make sure when we sell a vehicle, we want to make sure that it's right. The customer takes off with it, they're good to go for a good period of time. Alright, AC works this. Don't worry, we're going to do a video on that. Alright, this is Tim from Astro Auto Repairs. If we can't repair it, nobody can. see you on part 4.